Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here at Vinny's as we explore the Cotes du Rhone. And many of you, I'm really glad we're talking about this because it is one of the kind of busiest sections, honestly, in our stores, and one that is beloved by our customers. So we were hoping to kind of dive a little bit deeper today in this. And what better way to do that than actually have some producers on with us. And so it's my pleasure. By the way, I'm Alicia Barrett. I do wine education. You're probably familiar with my face. But the gentlemen here that are joining me, firstly, we have Frédéric Sureau, the Estate Sales Director at Chateau Beauchene. Frédéric, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Patrick Rigoulet, and Patrick is with Ferraton Fils. And we'll be tasting both of these wines and hearing their stories. So Patrick, as well, thank you for coming on from France.
Happy to be here. Very happy.
And also on the screen, you'll see Chris Spear, our wine manager at our Willowbrook store. Chris, as always, a pleasure. Thanks for joining.
Certainly. Happy to be here. Hello, gentlemen.
We are traveling, of course, to the Rhone Valley, the river that stretches from the Swiss Alps all the way down to the Mediterranean, about 500 miles. But the actual area that's kind of under vine is about 125 miles of that stretch, and it produces some of the world's best wines. And as mentioned today, we're really going to focus on the Cotes du Rhone and the Cotes du Rhone village. And we're going to get into both kind of the north and the south, the vast majority of this, of course, coming from the southern Rhone, but we'll explain the northern Rhone and the differences between these two parts of the river. And, a little fun fact that why we think you all should be aware of this region, be drinking more wines of the region, not only because of the quality, but I think some people are surprised by the vastness of its size. And the Cotes du Rhone AOC is the second largest appellation by hectares planted in France, just after Bordeaux. So if you're unfamiliar, we highly recommend you check it out, and hopefully, gentlemen, we can persuade them today, based on your beautiful wines, that they should do so, and especially ahead of Thanksgiving. I will say we'll get into food pairings, but wonderful wines. I know you all, of course, don't celebrate that in France, but these are perfect wines for us as the holidays approach. So with that, Frédéric and Patrick, I want to get into, I'm going to throw a map on the screen, and I want to get into kind of the climate of the region. Can you help kind of transport us to the place? Describe us why this area that's been planting vines for thousands of years and growing grapes is so suitable to high quality wine production.
Should I start although? Yes, so, well, it's very simple. It's just because south of Rhone is blessed by heaven. You have sunshine most of the time, dry weather. The soil is also very propitious for grapes, We always say that we have to make good wines. They need to struggle. The vines, the roots needs to struggle a little bit. And this is exactly what we have. We have usually a kind of rocky soil, bits of sand sometimes. So with the sun, it helps make a very magical wine sometimes.
So, are you done, Frédéric?
Yeah.
So just to complete the picture, as you mentioned, Alicia, there's really two separate areas: the southern Rhone, which produce the majority of the wines, which really has a Provençal climate, and the northern Rhone, which is much smaller because it accounts only for 5% of the total production, that has a fairly different climate, which is a bit more continental, with more higher, I'd say more regular rainfalls, but not as heavier as you can witness in the southern Rhone. But these two parts have I'd say a common soils, with the particularity of the northern Rhone having granite on the right bank of the Rhone River, which is linked to the central mountain in France. But then along all the river, you find the limestone-dominated sediments that were brought by this river year after years for million of years. And so all the Rhone Valley is actually dominated by this, what the Rhone brought from the Alps, but also a smaller river, the Isère River that jump into the Rhone in the northern part. And what is a blessing for the wine growing, apart from these very interesting soils in the Rhone Valley, and which is a common thing between the north and the south, is the mistral wind that blows through the valley. It's quite moderate when you're in the north, but as it goes through a kind of a corridor in the middle of the Rhone Valley, it really takes its speed towards the Mediterranean sea, and you have a lot of wind in the southern Rhone, and therefore also a lot of sun, and that helps having very balanced wine that are full of sunshine, but that are produced with healthy grapes and with good balance, because this northern wind also bring freshness to balance the sun that the grapes get in this more Provençal area.
And I want to bring Chris in here too, just for when you're in the store, Chris, and customers are heading over to the Rhone Valley, what are some of your points, especially at that the wines of the Cotes du Rhone specifically? What are some of the highlights that you think draw consumers to this region?
Well, I think for American consumers, it's absolutely in the southern Rhone, for Cotes du Rhone, the richness of fruit that they're familiar with from domestic wines, along with the concept of blending, which is so much a part of the southern Rhone. That's become a very popular idea in the States in recent years, to drink red blends. Of course, the whole world's been doing that forever, but we're so focused on varietal in the States that that seems like a new concept to us. So blended wines with richness, density of fruit, and also elegance and complexity that you don't always find elsewhere, with things like the herbaceous notes of the garrigue coming in and spice from the grape varieties. I think all these kind of warm, rich flavors are very appealing to American consumers. So those are some of the major points that I think that Americans really like to hear about and want to drink wines in that style. And they're very, very food friendly too, of course.
Yes, I completely agree. And the purity of fruit is really on display in all the wines today. Frederic and Patrick, I do want to ask in that kind of same breath about winemaking practices. And perhaps you can share I want to first start with the reds, and we'll get into whites when we first try the wine. But, Patrick, maybe you can share with your Cotes du Rhone Rouge, what are some of just kind of the standard winemaking practices that really define the style that is produced?
Well, Ferraton is a northern-based estate winery, and when we are producing wine in the southern part of the Rhone with partner growers, the style we aim will be infused per se by what we do in the northern Rhone with mostly with Syrah and the reds, or mostly and only with Syrah. So we will try to find in the red blends that are most of the time dominated by Grenache, the freshness we are used to with the Syrah, the kind of liveliness, and that's Grenache can be a very versatile grape. It can be very full, structured, powerful, but also it can show a lot of elegance, a lot of let's say very like juicy, but when I mean juicy, not like a jammy, like very very friendly, mouth-watering style. And that's, I believe, what really appeals the consumers in America or elsewhere is that the Cotes du Rhone wines are very friendly, and that's what we are looking for, to have something very direct, very approachable, but still with a lot of complexity. Most of the time, Cotes du Rhone are a very, very good bargain in the whole world of wine. And that's what we are looking for. For the bigger wines, what we produce, we do it in the Northern Rhone with our Hermitage or Saint-Joseph, Cornas or else.
And it's pretty common, right, Patrick, for a lot of producers that might produce, cru wines and own land to then also either purchase fruit, or they have their own land down in the Southern Rhone as well, to produce a lot of the Cotes du Rhone as part of this kind of entrance into their portfolio, correct?
That's the story of the Rhone Valley. As I mentioned earlier, only 5% of the wines, the total wines produced in the Rhone Valley are produced in the north, and the higher part of the demand in the whole world is more driven by approachable wines, and that you can find in the Southern Rhone. So historically, a lot of the famous Rhone wineries, which started especially in the north, like all the usual suspects, Guigal, Jaboulet, Chapoutier, Vidal Fleury, they had to look south to offer to the market very approachable and good wines, which is what people are looking for. They cannot drink, unfortunately, Hermitage, Côte-Rôtie, or Saint-Joseph every day. And that's the same. I would let Frédéric talk about it, but that's pretty much the same story in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It's like Châteauneuf-du-Pape is a fairly big area, but still, it produces high-end wines, and it has a limited production. So when you need to bring to people more approachable wines, when you're producing more and offers Cotes du Rhone or Cotes du Rhone Village.
Yeah, that's true. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is also as limited as the north part. You have only 350 winemakers, roughly, in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So it's totally the opposite compared to what you have in the rest of the South Rhone, where you have about 2,800 winemakers, something like that. So of course, it's very limited. So I just wanted to talk again a bit what Patrick said earlier about the Grenache, because South of Rhone is, of course, the kingdom of Grenache. And we have the perfect example in Chateau Beauchene, because we have about 70 hectares, but split in two. One part is in north part of Orange, where Chateau Beauchene is. We have mainly chalky clay soil, where the Grenache will express more in the fruitiness way, with light, easygoing, very fruity. And then we have the south part of Orange, where Châteauneuf area is, where the rocky soil, the pebble stones, as we all know, will bring more power and more strength to the Grenache. So it's really very strange. Same grape, but two different type of grapes, two different types of wines that you can get at the end.
Yeah, and you can see really the same difference between Châteauneuf and Gigondas also, which also a very, very defined profile with the same grape. So.
And gentlemen, while we're on the Grenache topic, and then Frédéric, I want to get to your wine here, and we'll go into the white grape varieties and winemaking. But while we're on Grenache, we are very aware of these warming temperatures, and especially in the Southern Rhone, Grenache is a grape that accumulates a lot of sugar and thus can produce some pretty high alcohol wines. And that is being observed with some kind of recent warmer vintages. So what is your observation of what's happening there? How do you anticipate Grenache being able to handle this? And are there any proactive steps being taken in the region to deal with this?
Yes, shall I start or you want to start, Patrick?
Sure, Frederick, you're the southern-based man.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So, as far as we are concerned in Chateau Beauchene, we've been taking this problem seriously for 20 years ago. And as you say, Grenache, this is the kingdom, but with the global warming, Grenache is a bit difficult to handle. We also have a lot of coulure. I don't know what you say in English. You know, it's a same. So the yield is never very steady in a way. So 20 years ago, Michel Bernard, the owner, decided to renew 50% of the estate and to adopt a little bit more of Mourvèdre, and also a new grape variety, which is Marcelin. It's a crossing grape that crossing between Cabernet Sauvignon and Grenache that is handling more the heat and is stronger during the process, the harvest, and so on. So during the growing. So we used to have about, let's say, 80% of Grenache in our wines, and now we are around 40% most of the time. And it helps, you know. We see the result for the past 10 years. We handle, we say our yield is quite steady now. We handle properly the global warming for that because of the grapes. The second part, maybe we'll talk about it after, is you say how we can handle also. It's not only about the winemaking, but mainly about the viticulture. We have worked a lot on the vineyard as well. This is, I mean, more than 60-70% of the wine is made in the vineyard. Actually, you know, if you have the good grapes, if you have enough yield, enough grapes to harvest, then you can make wine, and more or less you have more choice to make good wines. So we've been working a lot. We are not totally organic. We are high environmental value, which is we don't only take care of the vineyard, but we also take care of the ecosystem. We do some kind of agroecology, if it does something to you, agriculture and ecology. We combine both of them. So we take care of the ecosystem, the wildlife, everything, you know. And in the vineyard, we try to improve our skills. Herbing has been developed for the past few years. We add some cereals or different herbs that helps the soils to open itself, or to bring nitrogen to the roots, for instance. We also do mechanic weeding, so we try to avoid as much chemicals as possible. We don't use pesticides anymore. We use pheromones against the butterflies. Voila, these are all kind of things. But I mean, the main thing that we need is herbing, I think, because it helps a lot. You know, you basically put a cover of herbs on the vineyard next to the roots. It helps to keep the water evaporating, and also it helps to aerate enough the soil so the water goes in as fast as possible. And like this, I mean, so far for the past 5-6 years, from what I've been here, we've never had any drought problems. Always had enough water most of the time. After, it's just a matter of the climate. When it's a good year, like the past few years, it's perfect. We have very good yield. And when it's a year like last year, where you have frost in April and you cannot do anything more than just look at your vineyard and see that you have a lot of loss, and that's the way it is. So for the past 3-4 years, we had beautiful weather for the harvest, and one year from time to time, it's okay to assume that we can lose a little bit, and we lost about 40% this year, to give you an idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Patrick, just to bring you in here, how did you all fare this vintage, and anything to add on the kind of the climate change discussion?
Well, what Frederick said is interesting. Of course, the main job is in the vineyard, and this is where also the wine growers have to adapt their practices. The global warming is there. There's no question about it. But also, what has influenced a lot the concentration and the ripeness on the wines in the past decades was also the change in the viticultural practices, aiming for a higher concentration, lower yields. So one of the first tools probably the growers have to fight the effect of global warming on the wine production is to adapt their practices in the vineyards. And of course, acting on the overall environment of the vineyards is something very important. Creating the conditions to catch as much as possible the minerality a wine can get from the soil is something that is crucial. The Ferraton estate has been one of the early adopters also of the biodynamic practices. The wine we'll taste today is not part of this of this because it's something we are producing with partner growers. But in the north, with all our Syrah, Marsanne, Roussanne, we've been practicing biodynamic farming for more than 20 years, and that's the same idea on a different, on a parallel, let's say, path. Then high environmental value is to make sure that your soil is healthy, the overall environment creates the good conditions. Having also trees around the vineyards will help fight the frost. That is also a downside of the global warming, especially this year. But also will create, cooler nights. So there's a lot of ways to fight this. The Grenache probably is a bit more adapted to higher temperature. You find that in Spain. What can also influence the style of the wines, both in the southern Rhone and in the northern Rhone, is more how Syrah can be affected by the global warming, which is a more, let's say, less rustic grape. In the past 5 vintages, and overall in the string of the 10 past vintages, it was no surprise to see some Syrah that were harvested at 15 degrees, 14, 15 degrees, not because we will go for over-ripeness. It was just that if you want to go at this point where the grapes took what it had to took from the soil, well, you would have to reach that type of alcohol level. But
yeah,
because
I say to that point, it seems to me that the north and the south have very distinct challenges in that in the north you have very focused viticulture based on Syrah and a couple 3 whites. And in the south, you've got a lot of tools in your tool belt. You can play around with the blend a lot.
Yeah.
So, adjusting downward the proportion of Grenache is a strategy, but you can't do that in the north. You're kind of stuck with what you got. So you have to employ totally different tactics to really tackle this problem, right?
And well, of course, the alcohol level is a subject, but it's also somehow disconnected of the power of the wine or how it will be received, in terms of taste. When you put in place actions to have a balanced wine with healthy grapes, full of minerality, when you will taste the wine will be balanced and you won't feel the alcohol. Then it can be another issue for the tomorrow morning, but the wine will taste perfectly good for sure.
Yes, that is a really good point that, sometimes we get so caught up on alcohol levels, but it is also just the balance of the wine as a whole, even with alcohol creeping up, so long as, again, the concentration of fruit and the acidity are in play, you can still have a really fresh, balanced wine. All right, speaking of wine, I do want to get to tasting, if that's all right. And Frédéric, we're going to start with Chateau Beauchene's Cotes du Rhone Blanc here. So I'll have you, if you don't mind, introduce us for a minute to Chateau Beauchene. You've of course already spoken about it, and especially its vineyard practices and its location, but perhaps a little bit of the history of Chateau Beauchene. We're big fans of Benny's. We have multiple wines for you.
Sure.
And, this white being quite unique, that it's all Viognier. So if you want to walk us down kind of the white wines of the Rhone, that would be great.
Yes, sure. So just to introduce a little bit the estate. So Chateau Beauchene is owned by the Bernard family. Michel Bernard is the owner. He's about 72, 73 years old right now. So he's not, but he's very known all over the Rhone Valley. He's been president of the Syndics. He's quite a big personality. Bernard family, they've been in the Provence area for over 200 years. They start owning a vineyard. The first vineyard they owned was in 1794, just after the French Revolution, to give you an idea. So originally they were located in the north part of Châteauneuf appellation, south of Orange. And when Michel Bernard took over the estate in 1970s, he started to expand a bit more. And this is where he found an opportunity to acquire Chateau Beauchene in the 1980s. So the family estate is in south of Rhone. You have about 30 hectares, and north Orange, you have Chateau Beauchene with about 40 hectares. So total 70 hectares. Voila. I'd say that the style we have, so we've been talking about the high environmental value, that we are very keen on the ecology, and we try to work on that. But the style of the family, Bernard family, would say, I would join Patrick on that respect. We try to make very elegant wines, Burgundy style in a way. We do blending, of course, but we don't try to over extract, the color, everything. We try to have very, very, very delicate, elegant, with very soft tannins. So that's the main style. So also out of the 70 hectares, we produce mainly red, of course. We produce about 90% of red and 10% of white. So the Viognier that we're going to try tonight, basically we have about 8,000 to 10,000 bottles produced every year. Except this year, where we have about 7,000 bottles, a little bit less than usual, thanks to frost. So in the South Rhone, you don't only have Viognier, of course, you have many grapes. We have about 8 white grapes varieties. The main one being the Grenache. Viognier is more for the north part, but of course, when you have a good soil, a good terroir for that, you can try it. You can try it on, and this is what we did. Chateau Beauchene being the north part, we are in a chalky clay soil. We have a bit of it's like an alluvial plain, so we're not far from the river. It's a bit rocky, and we have underground rivers under the soil. So it's perfect for very fruity wines like Grenache, but also for the whites, and especially for the Viognier. So we started planting Viognier about 20 years ago, if I remember, roughly between 15 and 20 years ago. And we're still planting some right now because we have a big need of that, and it shows very good results so far. So at the Viognier, basically, we thought about doing it a traditional way. So basically, we harvest it and we directly press it, and we put it directly for vinification, fermentation in barriques. in oak French barricks. Once the fermentation is done, we leave it in the barricks for 6 months for aging. So we usually have them bottled like beginning of the year, February, March, latest. Being also the first grape that we harvest every year. What is difficult with Viognier? It's very yummy, of course. It's very fruity, very sweet, but it goes high in alcohol very fast, and the acidity goes low very fast as well. So you always have to find the perfect spot to harvest, to keep good level of alcohol and enough acidity to keep the freshness that you need in this type of wine, because it's very rich, very round. But on the side, you also need to have the aromatic maturity. Otherwise, you have vegetal notes. So it's a quite tricky grape. So thanks to the soil I was talking about, we have the water, we have a bit of freshness. It helps I'd say, and with the work in the vineyard that we do, it helps to slower this and to have a slow maturation as possible. So Viognier, very specific. In the north, you have a lot of mineral expression. I wouldn't say we would have as much mineral expression as you have in the north part of the Rhone Valley, but it's getting more into the fruit, the yumminess. We have more like, mainly you have, I would say, honey, peach, apricots, and when it's a bit riper, you can even go to the tropical fruits as well. So it's a very interesting, very easygoing white grape to drink. You can go as an aperitif, you can go with a meal. The way we vinify it, in a way, you can also have with a big meal, you know. You can go with seafood, of course, with cream, seafood, fish, of course. It's I would say passe-partout, goes everywhere with all kind of things. As long as you like the wine, it will go perfectly with a lot of things. Voila, roughly. Maybe if you have any question, maybe I forgot something.
No, thank you for that. And it's really lovely to see this pure expression of Viognier. And for everyone, I'll put this up at the end, but quite a steal at $15.99 for Viognier, especially that saw time in barrique. It's pretty impressive. Chris, I wanted to get your thoughts of this wine, and also as we do think about some holiday meals ahead, you know, the weightiness, the texture, the roundness, of course, really sticking out to me and helping its food friendliness, if you will. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the texture is notable. It's round, it's soft, it's super juicy with fruit, as Frederic said. Lots of apricot, maybe a whiff of nuttiness to it. To me, it's you mentioned tropical fruit. This version I think is veering on some tropicality with a note of jackfruit, as our friend Roger would say, and it has just enough freshness to keep it lively. You know, it's not a high acid grape, as you note, and I think unlike some other whites in the area that maybe have lower acidity as well, but they rely on maybe a hint of a tonic bitterness to keep them fresh. I don't think you see that here, but there is a citric zip of acidity on the finish, but it is a lush, round, sweetly fruited wine that would pair really nicely. I think you're spot on. Seafood, especially in cream sauces, but I also think it would go nicely with fall squashes. I think that would be a really great pairing. Some caramelized flavors from pumpkin or butternut squash would be really nice. Yeah, I think it's quite nice, and it's the kind of wine that you could start your evening with easily. It's juicy and friendly and easygoing, and you hand anyone a glass of that when they walk through your door, they're going to be pretty happy. So nice job, well done.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Frederic. We'll just briefly mention two other wines that we want to highlight. And I will, Patrick, I will ask you if you don't mind to comment on the role of cooperatives in the Rhone, because the next wine we are going to taste is from Cave La Comtadine, and this is their Cotes du Rhone Rouge, 80% Grenache, 20% Syrah. And I, was tasting it beforehand. I know, gentlemen, you're not having it, but Chris, if you want to give some thoughts. And this is all stainless steel, and this is your light-bodied, super fruity, very easy drinking. You don't need to think too much about it, but especially as we think about having gatherings with family and friends this time of year, and you need some wines at affordable price points. This is right now on sale for $8.99. So just demonstrating what was already said by you gentlemen of just the affordability of the Cotes du Rhone and the ability to produce great wines at those price points. So this was a cooperative founded back in 1930 by 12 families. And Patrick, can you just give us kind of a general sense of the role of cooperatives in the Rhone Valley?
Well, cooperatives have always been very strong in the Rhone Valley. A lot of, every villages had their own cooperatives back in the days, and they went through kind of a concentration for a greater good, and where they were mainly gathering wine growers and not winemakers. They always have been a very strong arm of sourcing partners to the Northern Rhone-based producer, for example, and in just dealing with the wine growing and the winemaking, because in a way it doesn't make sense to bring back Cotes du Rhone grapes 200 kilometers north to vinify them. So then whether it's a cooperative or a private seller, private growers, the main added value of the négociant or the estate, the wineries from the north, was then to blend and age the wines. More recently, the cooperatives have started to work more on their own bottlings, and it is true that most of the time they offer very good value wines that are also completing, the offer that is available from more historical producers, whether they're from the north or the south of the Rhone Valley. And that's one of the reasons why Rhone has become so popular, not only in the US but globally, is that there's an average level of quality offered by numerous producers, actors in this vineyard that is very, very high and very regular, and the cooperatives are part of this global environment.
Yes, and I think too, I love that you point that out, because sometimes consumers can think about cooperatives, and I think sometimes we go to kind of southern Italy or some other places in the world where cooperatives are very big, and we've seen kind of quality fluctuate with their production, and that really does set the Rhone apart, and these Cotes du Rhone wines and those made by cooperatives or more traditional producers, but the benchmark that all seem to agree on and strive for to maintain the typicity and quality that consumers expect. Chris, what do you think of the wine?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I don't think there's any reason to turn your nose up at cooperative wines. I think they can be incredibly well made. This one is an excellent example. I think these guys are located maybe a little northeast of where you are, Frederic, northeast of Orange. And to me, this is a very classic example of Cotes du Rhone. It's less informed by the modern, really super concentration and extraction driven wines that you sometimes see with the warm environment. It's medium bodied, super juicy. It's like a quintessential bistro wine loaded with raspberry fruit. And I even think on the nose, you get a real sense of some mineral and a little herbaceousness too. So, what I would have expected out of Cotes du Rhone maybe years ago, and that is not a negative thing. I think this is a real classic, easy drinking example of Cotes du Rhone.
Yeah, completely agree. So do check this out. We'll speak about one more wine, one more producer before we get to you, Patrick, and that is from Domaine Jean-Louis Chave.
I'm getting thirsty.
Sorry?
I'm getting thirsty.
Oh, okay. Well, please, you go ahead and indulge. It is late your time, so yeah, you dive in. But Chris, if you want to just give us a little bit of introduction here. This is from Chave's kind of selection line, and this is on the shelf at $19.99 from obviously a producer we're familiar with.
Indeed, a very famous producer in the Northern Rhone, working in the south again here. The homeland here is the Hermitage Hill. They make remarkable wines there under their domain. And as you mentioned, this is GL Chave Selection, which means that they're working as a negociant here, as would be normal under these circumstances. And again, like a lot of northern producers, I think they're bringing that northern sensibility to the south. There's a relatively large proportion of Syrah here, which gives you spice and freshness, and really makes the Grenache a little more lively with deeper fruits. But you still get that sense of full-bodied, red-fruited Grenache for sure. I think it's a really, really beautiful wine. It's, shooting at a Chateauneuf style, in my opinion. It's not a shy wine. It's not this medium-bodied co-op wine we had here. This is quite complex, quite interesting. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I completely agree that the tannic structure really starts to take form, really separating it from the previous wine. We said more concentration, but just this, as you said, a little the spice and earthy quality that we didn't get before. So another great option for those at home. Okay, Patrick, we're on to you now. Thank you for your patience. Tonight are showing your Cotes du Rhone village, the Plan de Dieu. And so if you can introduce us to Ferraton Fils, and then we'll all taste.
Well, Ferraton Fils is an estate that has been based at the foothill of Hermitage for 70 years. So we are neighbors to Jean-Louis Chave with many of our plots. We are a smaller producer in Hermitage, but we are still owning a bit more than 3 hectares on the hill, which makes us the taller dwarf on the hill. And we are producing wines with our estate in all the major Northern Rhone appellation, with a very high focus on single vineyards. Ferraton has been part of the Chapoutier ownership for more than 20 years. That brought us, of course, the impulse into biodynamic, but also into exploring the single vineyards, trying to shoot every year the specific pictures of one plot, because they are showing something different than the rest, either because they're the quintessence of the appellation or because they just are atypical for the appellation. And this estate has been grown biodynamically for the past 20 years. We offer a fairly large range of wines because of all these single vineyards, and because we also place ourselves as a generalist from the Rhone Valley through a négoce activity, and our aim is always with this range of wines, which we call tradition, is really to show the typicity of each appellation with our Northern Rhone sensitivity when it talks about the Southern Rhone wines. A few years ago, Jeb Dunnuck qualified these wines really as textbook wines, which I really like. I really like this quote, because they just scream what they are. A Crozes Hermitage will be what you would expect from a Crozes Hermitage. The same thing with Saint-Joseph and Hermitage, and in that case here, a Plan de Dieu. Plan de Dieu is what we call a Cotes du Rhone village with a name. So it means that it has been recognized to produce wine with a specific profile identity within the Cotes du Rhone village wider production. So you have the Cotes du Rhone, which is the regional appellation. The Cotes du Rhone village would then be pouches of higher quality areas, and Cotes du Rhone village with name like Plan de Dieu are showing a specific identity. And this is the last step before becoming a cru like Châteauneuf, Gigondas, Crozes Hermitage. And some neighboring Cotes du Rhone village with a name like Kéran or Rasteau became after some cru. Plan de Dieu is really at the foothill of the Dentelle de Montmirail, which hosts Gigondas. And not so far from Châteauneuf, Rasteau, Kéran, it's really a very flat area, very rocky, where you can find about 1,500 hectares of vineyards. And it has become a Cotes du Rhone village with a name about 15 years ago. We like this area because it has also this very rocky soils, which is different than Châteauneuf. It's not the round pebble; it's more like crushed rocks, but still with a thick layer of almost 10 meters mixed with clay, and it produces wines that are rich, powerful, but always very balanced, very refined. The vintage we are tasting here is 2018, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It is. Yeah. Well, I have the same
we
here.
We do have, just so you're aware, we 19s are in as well, so we'll be transitioning. Yeah.
So we can talk about these two vintages. 2019 will be a more classical vintage in terms of fruit power and balance. 2018 is more like a elegant, charming vintage, slightly lighter than 2019. But that's what I like here. It's like it's really refreshing. It's elegant. It's charming. Still, it offers because of the location of Plan de Dieu a very good power. But yeah, it's really a wine that is a crowd pleaser, and that you can go. Yeah, you can start your evening with it and finish it with it with the second bottle. The 2019 will be slightly more powerful, but also more spicy. And what I like with 2019 is that compared to other warmer vintages, it has a lot of energy. 2016 was a bit more very fruity, but a bit more powerful. When 2019 has a good energy. What else can we say about this wine? The name of the wine is funny. Plan de Dieu means the plain of God, and it took this name. Because there was a monastery in the area, and when people would go to this monastery, they would go through this flat land, which was not vineyard before, but just woods and rugs and bushes, and there was a lot of thieves in the area, and so you would put your face in the hands of God going through this place. So now it has become more even for grapes, but so that's really nice. I have a picture here actually of you can see here what the soil looks like. They're rocky, very rocky. So not the round pebbles that you can find in Châteauneuf, a bit different, but with also like old Grenache. So that's the type of soils. And the blend here also is almost equally an equal part of Syrah and Grenache, and the Syrah will bring also some structure and freshness to the blend.
In that photo, Patrick, that was a bush trained vine there, and we see that a lot. Especially, we mentioned the Mistral wind at the beginning of the conversation. Can you just briefly touch on what you need to do in the vineyard in terms of especially vine training as a result of the strength of that wind coming down the river?
Well, I'm not a big specialist of Grenache in terms of training, but anyway, this bush-like training is really classical for Grenache. That is like Gamay, the traditional way of training pruning. Well, it's like for any kind of let's say vital, the very heavy wind that can be quite difficult for the plant itself. So you just need to control and have not too much of a vegetation of leaves. But maybe Frédéric will be much more qualified than me in explaining how you limit the impact of the very strong wind that can blow in the southern Rhone.
Sometimes you just add a little wood stick when it's very windy. Also, if you take out some of the leaves, especially on summertime when July, August, where it's very hot, you can have kind of risk to burn some of the grapes. So it's tricky. You have to check how it goes. But well, at a certain point, certain age, I would say about 25, 30 years, the roots are strong enough normally to handle the wind. And you can say, the bamboo sticks, they just move like this, but they never break. So it's kind of the same in a way. You have to be careful, of course, but once they're strong enough, it's okay. But when they're a bit younger, you usually stick a little wood stick, and it handles everything properly.
Syrah is much more fragile than Grenache, and so this is why it's trained differently.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this evening, introducing us to the Cotes du Rhone and the Cotes du Rhone Village wines. I will just ask for kind of some closing remarks, just perhaps on what you would share, what really comes to mind that you want people to take away from this region. And Chris, I'll come back to you first and just ask specifically to an application for kind of Thanksgiving and Christmas, what your thoughts are with pairing and using these wines.
Yeah, absolutely. This Ferraton wine, I think, is quite nice. It's very leans a little more savory and dark fruited, but still has freshness, and I get a sense of fresh herb in the nose, not that kind of roasted herb that sometimes appears. And for me, that kind of aspect really is great with a traditional American Thanksgiving meal, because there are generally so many herbs used in Thanksgiving in the bread stuffings and things like that. The kind of herb on herb match here is fantastic. These Cotes du Rhones have the weight to stand up to dark meat, thigh meat, turkey for sure. I think they match fabulously with that. And chestnuts, I think, are great. I just think all around these are such versatile and friendly food wines, and with such a disparate flavor palette that the Thanksgiving meal delivers. You have to have a wine that's going to take on all comers and really handle a bunch of weird flavors. And I think there are a few better wines than Red Cotes du Rhone to do that. I really believe that. So excellent choice for your holiday table. And on top of that, if you're looking at the holidays more broadly, they will easily, some of these more full-bodied ones, particularly the last two, easily handle duck, beef, lamb, in my opinion, veal without any trouble whatsoever. So yeah, get into them. You're gonna like them.
Thanks, Chris. Frederick, any closing words for us?
Oh, well, I hope we will enjoy the whites, first of all, and that's the most important thing, you know. So you can come back and try and buy another bottle, hopefully, and maybe follow us for the next few years. We have a new vintage coming on very soon. Actually, very interesting also because we have a very acidic year, a lot of acidity this year, a bit less alcohol as well. You know, usually Viognier is roughly around 15%, and this time we're gonna have a little bit less. So it's kind of Condrieu type. I'm trying to be modest anyway, but so it's very interesting also. And of course, if anyone wants to come to visit us, you can come. You are very welcome. It's very nice. The region is beautiful. You can know that you might have heard that Georges Clooney had just settled down a few months ago. He bought a nice place in the Provence. It's beautiful landscape, beautiful region. So you might as well come over and taste the wine at its roots. This is the best part, the best way to drink and eat together, the local products.
Yes, I mean, and if anyone watching is wanting to make their way over, or planning to, do email us at wineatvinnies.com and we'll help you plan some visits. But you know, so we went back to the whites, and I forgot to mention earlier, of course, rosés coming out of the region as well. So really, there is a wine for everyone from the Rhone, and definitely look for those rosés. You might have a few stragglers still on the shelves. But of course, in the springtime, when we start to bring in the new vintage, check those out. And Patrick, any closing thoughts?
Well, of course, the Rhone Valley and offers beautiful sceneries, and it's a great place to visit any time of the year, and with a warm welcome from all the wineries, and great food to enjoy there. Well, meanwhile, please explore what this region has to offer, especially at Bini's, which has a great selection, and because that's one of the most interesting wine region in France and in the world, I would say, because it offers great quality at every price level, with a lot of variation around Syrah, which is a great grapes that offers outstanding refinement and definition from one vineyard to the other, as much as Pinot Noir. And well, Pinot Noir will be a bit more rare in the next vintages from France, at least. So if you want to, go for interesting discovery for French wine in this holiday season, please have a look at the Rhone, and all along the year, of course. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's please explore the Rhone Valley. There's so many wonders to discover there, in your glass or when you visit.
Yeah.
May I ask one final question? And it's simply this: turkey is relatively popular in France for Christmas with chestnuts and mushrooms. What do you generally like to pair with that?
Well, for Christmas, I will bring on the table maybe a slightly more prestigious bottle, to for this special day, and that could be a Chateauneuf. If we just think about the Rhone Valley, there would be so many options in the wine world, but just thinking about the Rhone Valley, that could be a Chateauneuf, a Cornas, or an Hermitage. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Same. I would do the same. Yes, definitely. I would even go try maybe for a white Chateauneuf. So very interesting. Very rare though. Huh? There's only 5% of Chateauneuf white produced every year, roughly, more or less.
Perfect with the duck color.
Yes.
Well, happy holidays, gentlemen, to you, and thank you again so much for joining us. For those watching, do visit your local Vinnies and check out this selection we'll be showcasing them in the weeks ahead because they are just so delightful. So thanks for watching. Visit us on our website for more tastings. Chris, thanks so much again.
My pleasure. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you, Alicia.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Patrick, Frederica, have a wonderful,
Enjoy.
wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.